Alright guys, and here on our news it says here's what Japan is doing to lead the next wave of XRP adoption. Now imagine a world where an entire nation's banking network operates on a single unified ledger, routing cross-border transactions in fractions of a second for a fraction of a cent. While the rest of the financial world spent years arguing over regulatory definitions, one country was quietly laying down the tracks, building the infrastructure, and preparing for a complete transformation of its monetary settlement rails. Now, could Japan be holding the master key to the next wave of global XRP adoption? Market analyst X Finance Bull right here recently posted a series of updates on X, highlighting compelling evidence that Japan isn't participating in the digital asset space. It is actively positioning itself to lead it. Between decades of institutional collaboration, major legal updates, and bizarrely symbolic legal code, the pieces of this puzzle are coming together fast. So let's break down exactly what's happening on the ground and what it could mean for the future of cross-border value transfer. So let's start with our very first question. Is Japan's banking infrastructure already built for massive XRP scaling? To understand where Japan is heading, you have to look at where it started. Analyst X Finance Bull kicked off his commentary by taking us back through the history of Ripple's footprint in Asia. This isn't a story that started yesterday. It began years ago through a joint venture with financial powerhouse SBI Holdings. Through SBI Ripple Asia, over 50 major Japanese banking institutions were brought into a single network powered by Ripple's payment framework. But they didn't just stop at theoretical testing. SBI Remit took things a step further by deploying XRP as a live bridge asset for real-world international money transfers, specifically targeting high-volume corridors across Southeast Asia. Now, here's my opinion. Most people look at financial adoption as a light switch that gets flipped overnight. In reality, institutional integration works more like constructing a massive railway. You spend years clearing the path, laying down steel tracks, and testing the engines before the first commercial train ever rules through. Now, Japan finished laying its tracks years ago. They aren't asking if distributed ledger tech works. They've already proven it works. The real catalyst will be the moment they turn the throttle and scale these corridors to full capacity. As X-Finance Bull noted, the infrastructure wasn't thrown together haphazardly. It's a deliberate, multi-year engineering feat. When institutional liquidity starts flowing at scale through these existing pipelines, the speed of adoption could surprise everyone who assumed the market was standing still. Now, could Article 589 of Japan's Civil Code create structural pressure on foreign debt? The narrative takes a fascinating legal turn in the second part of X Finance Bull's breakdown. The analyst shifted attention away from payments and toward Japan's legal framework, referencing insightful commentary from legal commentator Yuto regarding Article 589 of Japan's Civil Code. For context, Article 589 governs the rules around interest on loans for consumption. The core translation states that unless a specific prior agreement exists, a lender cannot demand interest from a borrower. However, if a special agreement is put in place, interest begins accruing from the exact day the borrower receives the asset. Whether that asset is traditional fiat money, or a digital property. Now, XRP Finance Bull pointed out Yuto's perspective, which is this specific legal structure could impose unprecedented leverage and pressure on international borrowers who constantly rely on refinancing debt through Japanese capital markets. Now, here's my opinion. The global debt market operates on friction, delays, and interest rate arbitrage. If Japanese lenders begin enforcing tighter asset receipt timelines and strict interest accrual terms, traditional legacy settlement channels, which take 3 to 5 days to settle internationally, are going to become an expensive liability. Foreign institutions won't be able to afford sitting in settlement limbo while interest accrues instantly. They will be forced to seek out hyper-efficient, instant settlement bridge assets to move value and settle obligations immediately. That's where friction-free digital assets naturally enter the equation as an operational necessity. While the post didn't state that Article 589 was written explicitly for cryptocurrency, the ripple effect of Japan's strict commercial laws could indirectly force global financial entities to adopt lightning-fast settlement rails just to remain competitive and compliant. Now, is the significance of Article 589 pure coincidence or a subtle signal? Then comes the detail that caught the eye of thousands across the digital asset space. That's the number itself. Analyst X Finance Bull acknowledged that Article 589 carries an unmistakable aura because 589 has been one of the most widely discussed numbers within the XRP community for years. Originally originating as an unverified meme and speculative price target, the number 589 has taken on a life of its own as a symbol of ultra-optimistic market expectations. Seeing Article 589 pop up directly in the middle of discussion about Japan's evolving monetary regulations and debt laws led by X Finance Bull to pose a simple question: is this just a wild coincidence? Or is there something deeper happening within the intersection of finance, law, and digital infrastructure? Now, here's my opinion. It's vital to separate internet lore from real-world mechanics. Do I believe Japanese lawmakers sat in a room years ago and named a civil code article 589 as an Easter egg for retail investors? Of course not. That's pure coincidence. But here is what isn't a coincidence. Japan's legal system is systematically defining how assets, loans, and digital settlements operate under the law. The community focuses on the number because it's memorable, but true value lies in the text of the law itself. The real magic isn't a 3-digit number. It's in the institutional certainty that clear law provides. Whether you view the number 589 as a fun piece of community history or a strange alignment of fate, the broader point remains unchanged. Japan is building a regulatory wall of clarity that few other major economies can match right now. Now, what makes Japan the jurisdictional benchmark for global asset tokenization? When you connect all these points, the decade-long partnership between Ripple and SBI, the real-world deployment of cross-border liquidity channels, and a precise legal framework governing loans and assets, a distinct pattern emerges. Japan is actively demonstrating to the world how a modern nation integrates public blockchain rails into a traditionally conservative banking system. Rather than fighting technological evolution, Japanese financial institutions have methodically integrated it into their core operations. They have systematically addressed compliance, custody, and settlement efficiency, while other regions remain stuck in regulatory gridlock. Now, here's my opinion. Capital always flows along the path of least resistance. When institutional players look for a safe, fully regulated environment to tokenize real-world assets, execute instant cross-border remittances, and manage liquidity, Japan stands out like a beacon of stability. The foundation built by SBI and Ripple in East Asia isn't a regional experiment. It's the prototype blueprint for how global banking will operate over the next decade. And finally, here is our overall conclusion. When we step back and look at the full picture presented by analyst X Finance Bull here, the broader strategy becomes hard to ignore. Japan isn't waiting around for permission from international regulators to modernize its financial rails. By combining SBI's extensive institutional reach with Ripple's payment technology, Japan has spent years constructing a high-speed financial ecosystem capable of handling immense liquidity. While retail markets often get distracted by short-term price fluctuations and symbolic numbers like 589, the real story is happening in the legal text and banking integrations. As global debt dynamics shift, and instant settlement becomes a requirement rather than a luxury, Japan's early investments in digital asset rails position it right at the center of the next major evolution in global finance. So we need to keep our eyes closely on East Asia because the blueprint for the future of cross-border value transfer is already running in real time. And this finally ends our video. Thank you very much for watching, and you might want as well to check this next recommended video right here.